CBC News has confirmed new information about Ottawa's trade talks with the U.S., talks that Mark Carney has called intensive. The CBC's Karina Roman joins me live. So, Karina, what have we learned?
Well, we've learned from sources familiar with those intensive talks that there have been direct discussions between Prime Minister Mark Carney and U.S. President Donald Trump since his visit to the Oval Office. In fact, that there have been a few phone calls in the evenings and exchanged text messages about the trade talks since that meeting in Washington. So it's not just been senior officials from both countries meeting. It's been at the very top, those discussions. And that speaks to how much Ottawa wants some kind of deal, at least on tariffs, before the G7, which is only 2 weeks away and which Canada is hosting. And this is something, of course, that was asked of Industry Minister Mélanie Joly today. Here's what she had to say.
First of all, this is a trade war, so it's perfectly normal that as that trade war is progressing, that there be diplomatic discussions between Prime Minister Carney and President Trump. They are talking. Having said that, I can also say that we mustn't be naive. We have to continue to protect ourselves and support our own workers right now. And we're clearly seeing that the 50% tariff is an escalation against all countries that produce steel and aluminum.
Now, there's been some speculation that because of the sensitivity and the high level of these talks, that's what's behind what some people characterize as a hesitation by the government to hit back right away against these 50% tariffs from the U.S. with our own escalation to 50% tariffs on U.S. steel and aluminum. And yet, you have people, including those who represent the steel industry and their workers, here in Ottawa, meeting with ministers and MPs, pushing for such retaliation, wanting Canada to up the ante to match those tariffs to 50%, and also additional tariffs on countries that engage in unfair trade, those places like China, who are accused of dumping cheap steel into Canada and into the U.S. Ontario Premier Doug Ford supporting that immediate retaliation, or at least not waiting too long for making that kind of action. Have a listen to what he had to say.
The ideal situation is to get a deal, and if that deal does not happen in the next few days, then we have to slap another 25% tariff on top of the existing 25% tariff on our aluminum and steel.
And of course, the steel industry saying that, you know, even if there is a deal with Donald Trump, can it really be trusted? Everyone knowing, and including Doug Ford in that scrum, saying, you know, Donald Trump could wake up the next day and change his mind. And so Canada has to do what it can do, regardless of what's happening in terms of those intensive talks.
And, excuse me, Karina, in addition to retaliation, the steel and aluminum industry is also looking for support from the government. What are they looking for exactly?
Well, they're obviously pleased to hear, and they've said this, that there is now all this talk about onshoring, using domestic supply of aluminum and steel in these new nation-building projects that keep getting talked about, or when we want to invest more in defense and new defense procurement. But those are not immediate solutions. Those are not now supports, which are needed for jobs that could be lost within days, if not weeks, because of these onerous tariffs. And so with the Prime Minister repeatedly saying that all the revenue from Canada's retaliatory tariffs and counter tariffs would go towards supporting these industries and the workers in those industries that are most affected. Lots of questions about how that would work, and is that money going to flow soon? And if so, what's the criteria for it flowing? And not really getting answers back, at least not today, from Mélanie Joly, nor in question period with the opposition asking about that. So perhaps the steel companies who are meeting with the ministers and the MPs might get some clarity on that. But at this point, Canadians still don't know how that money is going to be used to support those industries, and those industries saying they need it quickly.
Karina, thank you. The CBC's Karina Roman live in Ottawa.